Oceanhorn was originally released in 2013 for mobile devices, but has now made its way over to the PlayStation 4. But is this seafaring adventure worth finally taking? Or is this one adventure you definitely want to miss? Oceanhorn is an isometric 3D adventure game with heavy inspiration from The Legend of Zelda, especially The Wind Waker. In Oceanhorn, you're playing as a young adventurer who's off to try to find what happened to his father after his dad went on an adventure in order to slay the giant monster known as Oceanhorn. After a brief stay on the opening island, getting your sword and shield and the basics as far as controls are concerned, you jump in your small ship and set sail for the adventure itself. You're then tasked with traveling from various different islands, searching for dungeons, defeating monsters, and collecting essences, and finding out the whole story of the land itself, its history, and the history of Oceanhorn, before finally being able to tackle the beast yourself. You'll be completing a good handful of Zelda-esque dungeons throughout the course of the game. Inside each, you'll be slaying monsters, finding items such as keys, including even giant keys to open up the boss doors and open up giant chests, solving all kinds of various different puzzles, and finding each dungeon's specific item that you'll need in order to not only conquer the dungeon, but usually involves slaying the monster boss at the end of each dungeon. There's more though than just conquering the dungeons. There are some side stories and a little bit of side questing and a lot of exploration on each of the islands as you're trying to find all the secrets and hidden items such as heart pieces. Classic Zelda-esque, as you'll get 4 heart pieces, you'll get a new heart for your heart container, with up to 8 in the game. There's also bloodstones to find, which you can collect and then trade in for some special goodies, and plenty of money to find in various plants, grass, pots, and slaying monsters that you can then spend on stuff like healing potions, even a heart container, as well as some other special items. The controls are relatively basic, but work well. You have the square button for all your sword attacks. There's basically just your normal sword attacks, and holding down square will allow you to do the charged up spin attack to hit enemies around you or do a little bit of extra damage. The circle button is relegated to your items, such as your bombs, your bow and arrow, or the boots, which allow you to jump over small gaps or run into various objects. You'll also then have the triangle button, which is your magic spells. You have a magic meter, and you'll get various spells throughout the course of your adventure that you'll need in order to solve puzzles such as fire and ice spells to light things, or to melt ice, or to be able to drop objects onto switches far away in order to activate them and get through certain passages or solve puzzles, as well as even a cure spell if you're able to locate it. The R2 button is then for your shield, which you'll be able to block most enemy attacks and reflect enemy attacks, and sometimes reflect enemy beams later on in the game in order to solve puzzles and even hit enemies with the beam that you end up reflecting. While traveling the oceans on your boat, you'll get a cannon that you'll be able to fire at some various enemies, as well as some other objects in the water itself to kind of break up the monotony of going from island to island, but I actually found these areas to be enjoyable and a little bit relaxing, even if I was firing my cannon every few seconds. The oceans look great, especially in HD, and there's some good music that goes along with these segments. It is linear though. When you pick an island to go to, you're going to travel straight there. You won't be able to deviate or go on any adventuring with the boat itself, but these areas and sections are enjoyable for what they are. While there isn't necessarily a ton of the side quests or extra areas for you to explore, there are some islands that are just pure extra, where you can get some cool extra items to help in your adventure, as well as some islands are just there in order to give you stuff like the bloodstones. The cool thing is each island has a percentage that you'll be able to look at when selecting islands, so that you know how many of the secret items you found. So once it hits that 100%, you know that everything's been found, and there's no need to look for any more secrets there, which I definitely appreciate. And if you want to break up some of the adventure, there's also a fishing minigame that you'll be able to tackle, with the goal, of course, being to see how big a fish you can end up getting, as well as trying to get one of each type of fish. While slaying the monsters, not only will you get loot such as hearts to replenish and money that be spent, you'll also get experience. The game has a leveling up system, and every time you level up, you'll gain a new ability or skill, upgrades to your boat, upgrades to the amount of bombs or arrows you can hold, or sometimes also just get a boost in the amount of money that you currently have. So it's definitely worth it to slay extra monsters and try to build up that experience to level up. The game's story itself, while nothing spectacular, definitely gets the job done. A lot of it is told through just text boxes when talking to most civilians and random characters, but there are cutscenes with full voice acting that will happen from time to time for key moments. During the course of my gameplay, there wasn't any freezing, stuttering, glitching, or crashing of any sort, and the game does have a pretty good soundtrack with tracks from Kenji Ito as well as Nobu Uematsu. Oceanhorn is available on the PlayStation 4 for $14.99, and it does feature a full trophy list with a platinum. Islands throughout the course of the game will give you little bonus missions that you're able to do, such as slay a certain number of monsters, or slay a monster in a certain way, break open a certain amount of walls, or destroy a certain number of crates, which will grant you experience to level you up, but also a lot of times these little extra bonuses work as the game's trophies, so it's definitely rewarding to do the various little side objectives from island to island. Playing through the game for your first time, it will take you roughly 7 to 8 hours for the main story if you don't 100% everything before you end up completing the game's main storyline. Thankfully, once you beat the game, you can still load up your save right before the final boss and travel the world and find any of the stuff you may have missed along the way. While some may write Oceanhorn off as just a Zelda ripoff, I just look at it more of a game that is Zelda-inspired. A Zelda-light in many ways, as it will cure a Zelda fan's itch to play a new Zelda game. It very much reminds me of the older games in the Legend of Zelda series. It isn't quite as grand as newer entries into that series, but everything that Oceanhorn does, it does do well, even if the adventure itself isn't necessarily super long by any means. Being the second time I played Oceanhorn as I played it last year on PC via Steam, I enjoyed Oceanhorn just as much, if not more, this second time around. If you're a Zelda fan, you're definitely going to want to give it a look. Yes, there are a lot of Zelda-esque games out there for sure, but Oceanhorn does it well, trust me. In the end, I'm going to be giving the game an 8 out of 10. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course I hope you enjoyed.